For 5 years, he hid a secret in every single package he delivered. A simple handwritten note, folded and tucked under the tape, never meant to be found. Then, one morning, the billionaire CEO of the company he delivered for accidentally opened one. What she read inside would expose a hidden ritual of kindness and force her to dismantle her entire corporate culture. The delivery man was Marcus Thorne. Every morning for 1,825 days before dawn, he wrote a single sentence of encouragement on a small slip of paper. He never signed them. He never expected a reply. His secret mission was an act of quiet rebellion against his own isolating job. But when CEO Evelyn Reed found one, she didn't just see a kind note. She saw a devastating indictment of her own company's culture. And she had to find out who was behind it. Marcus Thorne's routine was born from silence. He worked for Quick Drop, a last-mile delivery giant that had grown at a brutal pace. Drivers were monitored by GPS, their breaks timed by an algorithm, their performance scored by a system that flagged any delay. Human interaction was logged as a service deviation. Efficiency was everything. And Marcus, like 80% of his colleagues according to internal surveys, was burning out. But his story started years before the uniform. He was 32, a former community college literature student who had to leave when his mother's multiple sclerosis worsened. He took the first job that offered consistent hours and health insurance. The Quick Drop depot on the south side became his world. He learned to move fast, to optimize his route, to avoid eye contact that might slow him down. The loneliness was a physical weight. For months, he came home to his small apartment and heard nothing but the echo of his own footsteps. Then one Tuesday in March 5 years ago, he delivered a package to a house where he could hear a child crying relentlessly inside. A tired-looking woman answered, took the box, and whispered a thank you without meeting his eyes. As he walked back to his van, he found a scrap of receipt paper in his pocket and a pen. Without thinking, he wrote, "You're doing great." He slipped it under her doormat. He drove away, his heart pounding like he'd committed a crime. That night, for the first time in months, he didn't feel entirely invisible. The next day, he wrote another, and another. It became his secret ritual. Every morning at 4:15 before his shift, with a cheap cup of coffee steaming beside him, he'd write one line. Sometimes it was simple, "Today holds good things." Sometimes it was for the struggle he imagined. This feeling is not permanent. He used different handwriting each time. He bought small, elegant note cards with his own money, cutting them into slim strips that fit perfectly under the tape sealing a box. He was careful. He only placed a note on one package per route, never on consecutive days to the same address. It was a game of random kindness against a system of pure transaction. For Marcus, it was a lifeline, a way to remind himself that his job, which felt so robotic, could still contain a human pulse. He told no one. Not his dispatcher, not his few remaining friends, certainly not Quick Drop. Because Quick Drop, under its founder and CEO Evelyn Reed, had become a case study in ruthless growth. Reed had taken the company from a startup to a national powerhouse in 7 years. She was celebrated in business journals for her data-driven approach, for her performance-first culture that had crushed competitors. Wall Street loved her. Employee turnover at 40% annually was considered a manageable cost of scaling. Evelyn Reed lived in a different universe. Her 44th floor corner office looked out over the city Marcus drove through every day. Her success was measured in quarterly earnings calls and stock surges. She believed in the system she built, a system of metrics, incentives, and accountability. If drivers were unhappy, the data said it was an optimization problem, not a human one. Surveys about burnout were noted in board reports as a potential operational headwind. The two worlds collided on a rainy Thursday morning. Evelyn was in her office early, preparing for an investor presentation on driver efficiency. A prototype package, a new type of envelope her logistics team was testing, was on her desk. She needed to feel its weight, its seal. As she tore it open, a small, cream-colored slip of paper, tucked neatly under the adhesive flap, fluttered onto her polished mahogany desk. She almost brushed it aside as packing material, but the handwriting caught her eye. It was elegant, deliberate. It read, "Whatever is heavy, you are stronger." Evelyn froze. She stared at the words. Then she turned the slip over, blank. No logo, no signature, no marketing QR code. This wasn't corporate communications. This was personal. A slow, cold realization dawned. This was inside a quick drop package. A package that had moved through their network, sorted by their machines, delivered by one of their drivers. Someone was putting unauthorized, handwritten messages into customer shipments. Her first reaction was pure CEO instinct, risk management. This was a massive breach of protocol, a liability nightmare. What if the message was inappropriate? What if it was a precursor to something worse? Her mind raced with logistics, with control, with the brand damage. But she kept reading the line. Whatever is heavy, you are stronger. She had just come from a tense board meeting where she'd argued for another round of route optimizations that would increase daily deliveries per driver by 8%. She called it lifting capacity. The words on the slip seemed to echo in the silent, expensive room. Who would do this and why? She called her head of security, David Chen, to her office. She handed him the slip, her face unreadable. "I want this traced," she said. "Every package in this test batch, every scan, every handoff. I want to know which driver touched this last, and I want to know if this is an isolated incident or a pattern." Chen, a former federal investigator, nodded. "We'll audit the tracking logs. It might take a few days." "Do it quietly," Evelyn said. "No alarms. I don't want this spooking anyone." As Chen left, Evelyn remained at her desk, the slip of paper now in a clear evidence sleeve. She wasn't just concerned. She was unsettled. The note was kind, profoundly, disarmingly kind. In her world of deliverables and key performance indicators, kindness was not a metric. It was an inefficiency. Meanwhile, Marcus finished his route, utterly unaware that the fragile secret he'd carried for 5 years had just landed on the most powerful desk in the company. He went home, wrote tomorrow's note, "Begin again, as often as you need," and fell asleep exhausted. The security audit was faster than expected. The tracking data was flawless. By noon the next day, David Chen was back in Evelyn's office with a tablet. "We found it," he said. The package was part of test batch 7. It was last handled by driver 1734, Marcus Thorne, at the Southside Depot. He completed his delivery scan at 8:42 a.m. yesterday. He pulled up Marcus's file on the screen. A standard employee photo, a 5-year service record, performance metrics consistently above average, low error rate, no disciplinary flags. "Is this the only one?" Evelyn asked, her eyes on Marcus's photo. "That's the thing," Chen said, his tone shifting. "We did a wider scan. Keyword search in customer service logs, social media monitoring. It's not isolated." He handed her another printout. "Over the last 3 years, we found 37 documented mentions from customers. They call them mystery notes, angel messages. They post pictures online. They thank Quick Drop for the surprise." Evelyn scanned the reports. A woman going through chemotherapy who said the note was the first thing that made her smile in a week. A new parent, overwhelmed and sleep-deprived, who found the message taped to a diaper box. A small business owner on the verge of collapse who said the words gave her the courage to stay open one more day. The notes were never signed. They were never the same, but the voice was consistent, a voice of gentle, persistent encouragement. 37, Evelyn whispered, "that we know of." "And that's just the ones who bothered to report it," Chen said. "If he's been doing this for years, once a day, the real number could be in the thousands." Evelyn leaned back, the weight of it crashing down. This wasn't a single breach. It was a sustained, secret campaign, running in parallel to her billion-dollar operation. A single driver, under the crushing pressure of her efficiency system, was performing thousands of acts of quiet rebellion. And the customers loved it. They were praising it. They were attributing this humanity to her company, to her brand, when she knew it was the exact opposite of her corporate design. She felt a strange, hollow sensation. This driver, Marcus Thorne, was doing what her entire corporate mission statement failed to do: create genuine human connection. And he was doing it by breaking every rule she'd ever written. "What's the protocol?" Chen asked, ready to act. "Standard procedure is immediate suspension pending investigation for tampering with customer property. We can have him in here by the end of the day." Evelyn looked from the security chief's expectant face to the simple, powerful words still displayed on her desk. She thought of the board, of the investors, of the performance-first culture she had championed. Firing Marcus Thorne was the obvious, logical, data-driven decision. But the note stared back at her. "Whatever is heavy, you are stronger." For the first time in her career, Evelyn Reed hesitated. "No," she said finally, her voice low. "Don't suspend him, don't contact him." Chen looked confused. "Ma'am." "I want to see him," Evelyn said, a dangerous new plan forming. "I want to see his route. I want to see him work. Tomorrow, you and I are going to make a delivery." At 5:45 the next morning, Evelyn Reed stood in the cold darkness of the Southside Depot parking lot, wearing borrowed cargo pants and a quick-drop windbreaker 2 sizes too big. David Chen, looking equally uncomfortable in a dispatcher's vest, handed her a scanner. "The route starts in 20 minutes, he said. "He loads van 17. We'll take van 9 and follow at a distance." They watched from behind the tinted glass of an unmarked van as Marcus Thorne arrived. He moved with a quiet, efficient economy, no wasted motion. He loaded his van with a practiced rhythm, organizing packages not just by stop number but by size and weight. Evelyn noted his speed. It was faster than the depot average by 12%. Her own metrics would have flagged him as a top performer. She felt a strange twist of pride, immediately followed by unease. As Marcus pulled out of the lot, they followed. The first 3 stops were routine, in and out, no notes. Evelyn began to wonder if they'd guessed wrong. Maybe yesterday was a fluke. Then came stop 4, a small apartment building. An elderly man was struggling to drag his recycling bin down the front steps. Marcus parked, hopped out, and without breaking stride said, "Let me get that for you, sir." He took the bin, carried it to the curb, then delivered the package. As he handed it over, he said something Evelyn couldn't hear through the van's window. The old man smiled, a real, bright smile, and clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "That's not in the protocol," Chen muttered, making a note on his tablet. "No," Evelyn said quietly, "it is." At stop 8, a house with a barking dog behind a fence. Marcus reached into his own pocket and tossed a treat over the fence. The barking stopped. The customer, a young woman holding a toddler, accepted her package with a wave. At stop 12, a closed office building. The package required a signature. The security guard was asleep in his chair. Marcus gently knocked on the glass, waited. Then when the guard startled awake, Marcus simply smiled and said, "Long night, I've been there." He got the signature without a hint of irritation. Evelyn watched, her CEO brain running calculations. These micro-interactions added seconds, maybe minutes, to his route. Her algorithms would penalize them as non-productive time. Yet they seemed to create goodwill, a soft metric her dashboard didn't track. Then at stop 15 they saw it, a residential delivery, a small cardboard box. Marcus took the package from his van, but before he approached the door he paused. He leaned against the side of the van, blocking the view from the street. He pulled a small note card and a pen from his breast pocket. He wrote quickly, a single line. He folded the card, slid it deftly under the clear packing tape on the box, and smoothed it down until it was nearly invisible. Then he delivered the package, rang the bell, and walked away. Evelyn's breath caught. There it was. The secret performed in daylight with the casual skill of a master magician. "He just did it," she whispered. "We have it on camera," Chen said, tapping the dash-mounted recorder. "Clear evidence of tampering." But the word tampering felt wrong to Evelyn now. It felt cheap. What she had just witnessed wasn't vandalism. It was a ritual. Pull over ahead, Evelyn said, her decision solidifying. I'm going to talk to him. Ma'am, I don't think That's an order, David. Wait here. Evelyn got out of the van and walked towards Marcus's parked vehicle, her heart hammering against her ribs. He was back at his van, logging the delivery on his scanner. He looked up, saw her approaching in the company windbreaker, and offered a polite, tired smile. Hey, you lost. I think the new trainee group is over at Depot 3. Evelyn shook her head, her mind racing for a cover story. No, I'm doing a ride-along, quality observation. They paired me with you today. Hope that's okay. Marcus's smile faltered slightly. A quality observer was basically a corporate spy. Sure, he said, his tone careful. No problem, climb in, it's not glamorous. For the next 4 hours, Evelyn sat in the passenger seat of the delivery van. She watched him work. She felt the relentless pace of the scanner's beeps, the pressure of the estimated delivery times blinking on the screen. She heard the dispatcher's voice crackle over the radio, pushing for faster times. She saw the way Marcus's jaw tightened when a traffic jam made him fall 8 minutes behind schedule. During a lull parked outside a strip mall, she spoke. It's a hard job. Marcus took a swig of water. It has its moments. Do you like it? He looked at her, a long, assessing look. I like helping people get their stuff. I don't like being a battery in a giant machine. He paused, then seemed to decide to trust her. You new to this? In a way, Evelyn said. I used to be in a different part of the company, far away from the vans. Head office? Marcus asked, a hint of wariness returning. Something like that. I'm trying to understand how it really works out here. The metrics they send up, they don't always tell the whole story. Marcus let out a short, humorless laugh. The metrics tell the story they want to hear. He pointed to the scanner. That thing knows how fast I walk. It knows how long I talk to a customer. It doesn't know why. It doesn't know that Mrs. Gable at stop 22 is 89 and lonely, and that a 30-second chat is the only conversation she'll have all day. It just sees a 30-second delay. Evelyn was silent. She had approved the software upgrade that enabled that precise conversational timing. Why do you do it then? She asked. The extra chat, the little things. Marcus stared out the windshield for a long time. Because if I don't, he said finally, his voice low, I'll forget I'm a person, and they'll forget I'm a person. He started the van. Next stop. They didn't speak again until the end of the route. As they pulled back into the depot, Evelyn knew she couldn't reveal herself. Not yet. Thank you, she said. You gave me a lot to think about. Marcus just nodded, already focusing on his end-of-day paperwork. Back in her office that evening, Evelyn felt like the walls were closing in. She had David Chen's report on her desk, recommending immediate termination for violation of company property and protocol. It was clean, simple, and by the book. But on her other screen, she had the social media feed Chen had compiled. She searched the hashtag QuickDropAngel. Hundreds of posts, pictures of the handwritten notes, stories of profound impact. A teacher who'd kept a note in her planner all year. A veteran battling PTSD who said the message on his medication delivery stopped him from a dark spiral. The data was undeniable. This secret campaign had generated more organic, positive brand sentiment than their last $2 million marketing campaigns combined. The pivot was staggering. What she had seen as a liability was, by every measure of brand love and customer loyalty, a massive, hidden asset. But it was an asset built on a lie, on a single man's silent rebellion against the very system she had built. She called a private meeting with her chief people officer, Lena Torres. She laid out the situation, minus her own undercover experience. We have an employee engaging in an unauthorized, albeit positive, customer interaction. It's created a grassroots brand phenomenon, but it violates policy. What's the human resources perspective? Lena, a sharp woman in her 50s, steepled her fingers. Policy exists for consistency and risk mitigation. This is inconsistent and a risk. We terminate. The positive sentiment is a happy accident, but we can't build a culture on rogue actors. What if the policy is wrong? Evelyn asked, the question hanging in the air. Lena raised an eyebrow. Then you change the policy. But you don't do it because one driver found a loophole for kindness. You do it because data shows it improves retention, performance, and profit. Do we have that data? Evelyn looked at the Quick Drop Angel feed. We have anecdotal data, powerful but not quantitative. Then you don't have data, Lena said gently. You have a story, and you can't run a billion-dollar company on stories. That night, Evelyn did something she hadn't done in years. She drove to the south side. She found the small, well-kept apartment building from Marcus's file. She saw a light on in a second-floor window. She didn't get out. She just sat there, watching. A shadow passed by the curtain, Marcus moving around. She thought of him writing his notes at 4:15 in the morning. She thought of the sheer, staggering scale of his commitment. 5 years, thousands of notes, a secret ministry of encouragement. She pulled out her phone and typed a note to David Chen. Stand down on the termination. I need a full analysis. I want to know everything about Marcus Thorne. Financials, family, medical, everything. And I want it by tomorrow. The report that landed on her desk at 8 a.m. was devastating. Marcus Thorne's mother required full-time care. Her medical bills were catastrophic. Marcus was $87,000 in medical debt. He worked 6 days a week, often picking up extra shifts. His credit score was in the low 500s. He had no savings. His performance metrics had begun a slight decline in the last 6 months. The early signs of burnout her system was designed to identify, but only to flag for corrective action. The system saw a dip in efficiency. Evelyn now saw a man drowning. At that moment, her assistant buzzed. Ms. Reed, Marcus Thorne is here. He says he was told to report to your office immediately. Evelyn's blood went cold. She hadn't summoned him. She looked at David Chen's last message. Proceeding with standard protocol. Employee inbound for disciplinary hearing. He had gone around her. The system, once set in motion, was enforcing itself. Send him in, Evelyn said, her voice barely steady. The door opened. Marcus Thorne walked in, still in his delivery uniform, his cap in his hands. He looked at the lavish office, then at her, sitting behind the massive desk. The confusion on his face shifted to dawning horror, then to a flat, resigned understanding. He recognized her, the trainee from the van. You, he said quietly. Marcus, please sit down, Evelyn began. I'd rather stand. His voice was hollow. The warmth she'd heard in the van was gone. So this is it, the quality observation. Am I fired? Evelyn stood up, coming around the desk. This wasn't my call, my security chief. But you're the CEO, Marcus said, cutting her off. His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw the anger beneath the calm. It's all your call. You built this. The scanners, the timers, the feeling that a robot is watching you breathe. You wanted to see how the machine worked. You rode with me, you saw it. It grinds people into dust. My notes, that was the one thing that was mine. The one thing the machine didn't get to own. He reached into his pocket and threw a small stack of blank note cards onto her desk. They fanned out like a poker hand. Here, you can have the contraband. Just tell me one thing. Did any of it matter to you up here in your castle, or was it just a data point? Evelyn looked from the cards to his face, etched with exhaustion and defeat. The chasm between her world and his had never felt wider or more cruel. It mattered, she said, the words feeling inadequate. It mattered more than you can possibly know. Marcus just shook his head, a bitter smile touching his lips. Great, so I'm fired for mattering. He turned to leave. You're not fired, Evelyn said, the words leaving her mouth before her CEO brain could stop them. Marcus stopped, his back to her. I'm suspending you with pay for 2 weeks. Evelyn said, the plan forming in real time. I need you to do something for me. He turned slowly. What? I need you to teach me. Marcus Thorne stared at Evelyn Reed as if she'd spoken in a dead language. Teach you what? How to be a human being. I think you're a little late for that. The sting was deliberate. Evelyn absorbed it. Teach me why you did it, the real why, not the brand sentiment reports, the personal why. And teach me what this company feels like from the inside of your van. I'll pay you your full wage plus a consultant fee, 2 weeks. Marcus's eyes flicked to the door, then back to her. He was trapped. Suspension with pay was a lifeline for his debts, but it felt like a gilded cage. And after 2 weeks, then you fire me with a clear conscience. I don't know what happens after 2 weeks, Evelyn said honestly. But I know that if I fire you today, I am making a decision based on fear. And I have built an entire company trying to eliminate fear from the equation. It seems I failed. Her vulnerability, so stark and un-CEO-like, disarmed him. He let out a long breath, the fight draining out of him, replaced by a profound weariness. Fine, 2 weeks. What's the first lesson? Lesson 1, Evelyn said. Show me where you write them. The next morning at 4 a.m., Evelyn's town car pulled up outside Marcus's apartment. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. He was waiting on the stoop, 2 paper coffee cups in hand. He handed her one without a word. His apartment was small, tidy, and filled with books. Philosophy, poetry, dog-eared novels. In the corner of the living room was a hospital bed. His mother, Helen, was asleep, a soft hum of medical equipment the only sound. Evelyn froze in the doorway, the reality of his life hitting her with physical force. She's stable in the mornings, Marcus whispered, leading her to the kitchen table. It was covered in note cards, pens, and a well-thumbed book of quotations. This is the factory. He took a fresh card. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and wrote, in swift, graceful script, You are a story that is still being told. Evelyn watched, mesmerized. It wasn't just the writing, it was the intention. He wasn't filling a quota, he was performing a sacrament. How do you choose the words? She asked. I don't know, he said. I just listen, to the news, to the feeling in the street, to my own tired brain. I write what I think someone needs to hear, what I need to hear. Do you know who gets them? No, and that's the point. It's not for a specific person, it's for anyone. It's a message in a bottle tossed into an ocean of boxes. He slid the card across to her. Your turn. Evelyn picked up a pen. Her hand, which signed million-dollar contracts without a tremor, shook. She tried to think of something profound, strategic, impactful. The blank card mocked her. After a full minute, she wrote, Productivity is a journey. Marcus read it. A smile, not unkind, touched his lips. That's a corporate mission statement. You're writing to an audience. You're not writing to a person. I don't know how to do that, Evelyn admitted, a shocking confession. Then that's lesson 2, Marcus said. Over the next 10 days, a bizarre routine developed. Mornings were spent at his kitchen table, her failing to write a single genuine line. Afternoons were spent in her office, where she made him explain the brutal math of his job. She showed him the driver dashboard, the algorithm that predicted his fatigue based on keystroke speed. You see, she said, pointing to a graph, this predicts burnout with 70% accuracy. Marcus looked at the screen, then at her. It doesn't predict burnout. It predicts the moment your spirit gives up and you become a perfect, compliant robot. That's not the same thing. He made her calculate his take-home pay after deductions and fuel costs. He made her read the driver forum, a space she never knew existed, filled with stories of pain, frustration, and small acts of solidarity. She saw her company through a lens of pure, unfiltered pain. The manageable turnover was a hemorrhage of human potential. The efficiency gains were extracted from the mental health of people like Marcus. Halfway through the second week, Lena Torres marched into Evelyn's office. The rumor mill is churning, Evelyn. People know you suspended a driver. They know he's here with you. They think you're being soft. The board is asking questions." "Let them ask," Evelyn said, not looking up from a driver's post about working with a broken toe because sick pay wouldn't cover rent. "This isn't a philosophy seminar," Lena snapped. "We have a shareholder meeting in 1 month. If this story leaks, that the CEO is being mentored by a rogue driver, it will be a circus. The stock will tank." "What if the story is that the CEO learned something?" Evelyn asked quietly. Lena threw up her hands. "The market doesn't reward learning, it rewards winning." After Lena left, Evelyn found Marcus in the small conference room she'd given him, reviewing route maps. "We have a problem," she said. "You have a problem," he corrected. "I'm just the ghost in your machine." "The board is getting nervous. The shareholder meeting is in 30 days. If this gets out before I have a new strategy, a new narrative, they could force me out." Marcus leaned back. "And what's the new narrative?" "I don't know yet," Evelyn said, "but it starts with ending the war on our own employees." That evening, she asked him the question that had been burning in her for days. "The debt. Your mother, why didn't you ask for help? The company has hardship funds." Marcus gave her a look of pure pity. "And put my name on a list. Have someone like Lena Torres decide if my mom's suffering is hardship enough. No thank you. The system you built teaches you not to ask. It teaches you to hide your weakness because weakness is the only sin." Evelyn had no answer. He was right. The next day, the "wait, it gets worse" moment arrived. David Chen burst into her office, his face ashen. "It's out," he said. "A customer blog, they connected the dots. They know the Quick Drop Angel was a driver. They know he was suspended. The headline is 'Company Silences Angel Driver for Spreading Kindness.' It's going viral." Evelyn pulled up the article. It had been shared 50,000 times in an hour. The comments were a firestorm, calls for boycotts, stories from other drivers about punitive management. The hashtag #FireTheCEO was trending. Lena ran in moments later. "The board chair is on line 1. The news networks are calling. Our social media is being flooded. Evelyn, this is a full-blown reputational crisis." Evelyn felt the walls of her world collapsing. The secret was out and the narrative was completely against her. She was the villain, the heartless corporatist who crushed kindness. "What's the play?" Chen asked. "We can issue a statement. Clarify he was suspended for violating policy, not for kindness. We can release the metrics showing his non-compliant interactions." "No," Evelyn said, her voice surprisingly calm. "Evelyn, we have to control the narrative," Lena pleaded. "We lost control of the narrative 5 years ago," Evelyn said, standing up. "When the first note was written, we've been running a company on a story we didn't even know was being told. It's time to change the story." She turned to Marcus, who had appeared in the doorway having heard the commotion. "Are you ready for lesson 3? "What's lesson 3? He asked. "Going live," she said. Against the frantic advice of her entire executive team, Evelyn Reed scheduled a live, company-wide video broadcast for that evening at 7 p.m. She gave no script to communications. She told no one what she would say. At 6:59, she sat at her desk, a simple camera pointed at her. Marcus stood off-camera, arms crossed, watching. The live light went red. Thousands of employees, from drivers to VPs, tuned in. Evelyn took a breath and began. "My name is Evelyn Reed. 5 years ago, I founded Quick Drop with a simple idea: to deliver packages faster and cheaper than anyone else. I believed that with the right data, the right systems, we could eliminate inefficiency. I was right. We grew. We won. But in the last 2 weeks, I have learned that I was also profoundly wrong." She held up a note card. The camera zoomed in. "This is a note written by one of our drivers, Marcus Thorne. It says, 'You are a story that is still being told.'" For 5 years, Marcus has been secretly placing notes like this in packages, thousands of them. He did it without permission. He broke our rules, And when I found out, my first instinct was to see him as a problem to be solved, a risk to be managed. She looked directly into the lens. I was the problem. Our system, which I designed, is brilliant at moving boxes, but it is terrible at seeing people. It sees drivers as variables in a logistics equation. It sees seconds of delay, not seconds of human connection. Marcus's notes were not a breach of protocol. They were a correction, a message from the heart of this company telling us what we had forgotten. She paused, letting the words hang. I suspended Marcus, not to punish him, but to learn from him. And I have learned this. Efficiency without humanity is just a slower form of failure. So effective immediately, I am making 3 changes. First, all disciplinary action against Marcus Thorne is rescinded. He is reinstated with full pay and back pay. Second, I am creating a new role, Director of Employee and Customer Experience, and I am offering that job to Marcus. Off camera, Marcus's jaw dropped. Third, Evelyn continued, her voice gaining strength, we are ending the war on non-productive time. We are redesigning our driver metrics to reward positive customer interaction, not just speed. We are establishing a real, no questions asked hardship fund. And we are launching a pilot program with Marcus's guidance called The Note. Drivers who wish to participate can carry approved, pre-printed messages of encouragement to leave with deliveries. She leaned forward. To our drivers, I am sorry. The system failed you. I failed you. That changes today. To our customers, thank you for showing us what truly matters. And to Marcus, thank you for not giving up on us. She ended the stream. The silence in the room was absolute. Then her phone exploded. Texts, emails, alerts. Lena stared at her monitor, tears in her eyes. The driver forums, Evelyn, you have to see this. On the screen, messages were pouring in. Drivers posting crying emojis. Someone finally heard us. Is this real? I've worked here for 4 years and I've never felt seen. Marcus stepped into the frame looking stunned. Director, you're out of your mind. Probably, Evelyn said, a tired smile on her face. But you said the system teaches people not to ask. We need to build a new system, and I can't do it alone. For a moment she thought he would refuse, that the gap was too wide. Then he nodded once. Okay, but I'm not wearing a tie. The relief was short-lived. David Chen spoke from the doorway, his phone to his ear. He lowered it, his face grim. That was the board chair. They've called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. They said to bring your resignation speech. The boardroom at 8 a.m. was a theater of cold silence. 11 men and women, representing the largest institutional investors in Quick Drop, stared at Evelyn Reed as she took her seat at the head of the table. The chair, a silver-haired man named Arthur Bradford, spoke first. Your live stream was an unapproved, catastrophic communication. You unilaterally committed to operational changes that will cost millions. You elevated a rogue employee to an executive position. The market reaction has been volatile. He pushed a tablet across the table. The stock price was down 18% in pre-market trading. The motion on the floor, Bradford continued, is for your immediate removal as CEO for cause. We have the votes. Evelyn looked around the table. These were the people who had cheered her relentless growth. Now they saw only risk. She took a breath. Before you vote, I ask for 10 minutes, not to save my job, to show you what you're actually voting to end. She nodded to Lena Torres, who dimmed the lights and started a presentation. But it wasn't charts and projections. It was a montage. Video clips from the driver forum reactions to her speech. Photos of the Quick Drop Angel posts. A graph not of stock price but of brand sentiment, spiking vertically in the 12 hours since her broadcast. Then, she played audio, a recorded call from the customer service line. A woman's voice, shaky with emotion. I got one of the notes 2 years ago. It said your courage is quieter than your fear, but it is louder. I was in an abusive marriage. I left that week. I kept the note in my wallet. I just called to say thank you for having someone who cared enough to write it. The room was still. Evelyn stood. For 5 years, we measured success in minutes shaved and costs cut. We called it efficiency. But while we were building a machine, one driver was building a soul. His notes created more loyalty, more genuine brand equity than every marketing dollar we've ever spent. The stock is down today because change is scary, but look at this. She pointed to the sentiment graph. This is trust. This is the foundation of the next decade of growth. Fire me if you want. But if you fire the idea that this company can be both efficient and human, you are not managing risk. You are committing suicide. She sat down, the silence stretched. Then, from the end of the table, the board's newest member, a younger venture capitalist named Anya Chen, spoke. I've been reading the driver forums all night. One post stuck with me. It said, "For the first time, I don't feel like a disposable part." What's the value of a non-disposable part, Mr. Bradford? The calculus in the room shifted, from pure financial fear to a dawning understanding of a different kind of value. The vote was called. It was secret. When the ballots were counted, the motion to remove Evelyn failed, by one vote. But the victory came with chains. The board issued an ultimatum. She had 90 days. The new Note pilot program had to show measurable results, not just sentiment but hard metrics on driver retention and customer satisfaction. The stock price had to stabilize, or they would reconvene and the result would be different. The pressure was now absolute. Evelyn walked out of the boardroom and straight to the small office they'd given Marcus. He was at his computer, designing a simple intake form for the hardship fund. "We're alive," she said, "for 90 days. Marcus just nodded. "Then we better get to work." What followed was a whirlwind. Marcus, in his new role, became a bridge between two worlds that had never truly communicated. He sat in product meetings and translated engineering jargon into human impact. When you say optimize the last mile, what you mean is remove the 30 seconds a driver has to drink water. He redesigned the driver reward system. Instead of a bonus for 0 delays, there was a bonus for positive customer feedback. He worked with tech to create a simple, one-button prompt on the scanner. Add a note of encouragement. If a driver pressed yes, they could select from a rotating list of phrases Marcus wrote or write their own. It added 5 seconds to the stop time. The algorithm was reprogrammed to not penalize it. The pilot launched in one city. The skepticism within the company was palpable. Middle managers, trained on the old dogma, resisted. Then, the first weekly reports came in. Driver retention in the pilot city jumped by 15%. Sick days dropped. Customer satisfaction scores for delivery experience went from an average of 4.2 to 4.8 out of 5. The Note feature was used in 20% of all deliveries, and the story started flowing into a new internal channel. A driver wrote about giving a note to a grieving widow. A customer tweeted that the note arrived on the day she got a cancer diagnosis. The data was powerful, but it was the stories that moved the needle. Evelyn made a crucial decision. She started every executive meeting by reading one story from the new channel. She forced her leadership team to see the people behind the metrics. Meanwhile, the hardship fund received its first application. A driver's child needed emergency surgery. Under the old system, it would have been a labyrinth of forms and approvals. Under Marcus's design, it was approved in 4 hours. The driver posted a thank you in the forum, and for the first time, the sentiment inside the company began to truly shift. But the 90-day clock was ticking. The stock price, after its initial plunge, began a slow, volatile climb back. Analysts were confused. They couldn't model kindness into their spreadsheets. A major business magazine published a cover story titled "The Feel-Good Gamble: Can Kindness Scale?" With 30 days left, the board demanded a preview. Evelyn and Marcus presented their results. The numbers were good but not stunning. Retention up, satisfaction up, costs slightly up due to the hardship fund. Arthur Bradford remained unmoved. "You've bought some goodwill at a significant cost. Where's the bottom line impact?" Then Marcus spoke. He wasn't a polished presenter. He spoke quietly, directly. For 5 years, I hid notes in boxes because it was the only way to feel human at work. The cost of me not feeling human was $87,000 in medical debt from stress-related illnesses and a slow burn toward quitting. The cost of thousands of drivers not feeling human is your 40% annual turnover. Replacing one driver costs you roughly $30,000. You're not measuring a cost, Mr. Bradford. You're measuring a multi-million-dollar leak. We're not adding an expense. We're plugging the hole. He presented a new calculation, worked out with Lena. The projected savings from cutting turnover in half, from reducing training costs, from lowering accident rates linked to driver fatigue. The number was substantial. It turned the hardship fund from a cost center into an investment with a clear return. The board was silent, but this time it was the silence of recalculation. The 90-day deadline arrived on the morning of the shareholder meeting. The grand hall was packed. Investors, analysts, journalists. The air was tense. Evelyn took the stage. She didn't hide from the controversy. She led with it. 1 year ago, she began, a piece of paper fell out of a package onto my desk. It disrupted everything I thought I knew about this company. It sent me on a journey to the heart of our business, and what I found was a disconnect between our ambition and our humanity. Today, I'm here to report that we have begun to bridge that gap. She presented the pilot results. She announced the nationwide rollout of the NOTE program and the Permanent Hardship Fund. Then she introduced Marcus to the stage. He walked out, not in a tie, but in a simple button-down shirt. The audience, expecting a slick executive, was visibly surprised. He spoke for just 3 minutes. I used to think my job was to deliver packages. I was wrong. My job is to deliver connections. Sometimes that's a box. Sometimes it's a few words of hope. My colleague here, he said, gesturing to Evelyn, had the courage to listen to a message she didn't send. That's the new policy. We're listening. The applause started in the back of the room, not from investors, but from a group of quick-drop drivers in uniform who had been quietly invited to attend. It spread, growing into a sustained, genuine standing ovation. The cameras flashed. That evening, the stock closed up 7%. In the months that followed, the transformation solidified. Quick Drop didn't just become known for speed, it became known for a culture of care. Recruiting applications soared. They started winning Best Place to Work awards. The NOTE program was studied by business schools, but the most profound changes were invisible to the outside world. Marcus used his first-year bonus to pay off his mother's medical debt. He moved her to a better care facility. The constant strain in his face began to ease. Evelyn, for her part, started leaving her office regularly. She visited depots. She rode on routes. She instituted listening days where any employee could book 15 minutes with her. The walled-off CEO was gone. One evening, a year after the boardroom showdown, Evelyn was working late. A package arrived on her desk. It was a small, plain box. Inside was a beautiful, leather-bound journal, and tucked in the first page was a note card in familiar handwriting. It read, "For the words you're still learning to write, thank you for listening, Marcus." Evelyn smiled, a real, unguarded smile. She opened the journal to the first page and for the first time wrote a sentence that wasn't a metric, a goal, or a strategy. She wrote a simple note of encouragement to her future self. The change was complete, not just in the company but in the people who led it. The machine had learned a heartbeat. Marcus Thorne's story began in silence and secrecy, a single human heartbeat against the hum of a machine. It ended by remaking the machine itself. But this is not just a story about notes in boxes. It's a story about what happens when we dare to listen to the quietest voice in the room, especially when that voice is telling us something we're afraid to hear. For 5 years, Marcus performed thousands of acts of invisible kindness. He did it not for recognition, but as an act of personal survival, a way to remember his own humanity in a system designed to erase it. And when Evelyn Reed, the architect of that very system, finally heard the message, She faced a choice that defines true leadership: to defend the system or to learn from its most profound critic. The transformation of Quick Drop reminds us of a powerful, often forgotten truth. Efficiency without humanity is a dead end. Metrics that measure only output but never input, the hope, the fear, the weariness of the people doing the work, are metrics that lie. What Marcus and Evelyn discovered in their clash of worlds was that kindness is not a soft cost. It is a hard strategy. It plugs the multi-million-dollar leaks of turnover and burnout. It builds the kind of loyalty that no advertising campaign can buy. Their journey asks a question of every single one of us. In our own workplaces, in our communities, in our daily interactions, what messages are we missing? Who is the Marcus in our lives, speaking a truth we haven't paused to hear? And are we, like Evelyn, brave enough to let that truth change us? Because the most extraordinary part of this story isn't that one man wrote notes. It's that one woman at the peak of her power chose to read them. She chose to see the person behind the performance report. And in doing so, she didn't just save his spirit, she redeemed her own. The ripple effect of a single, stubborn act of kindness can be limitless. It can travel from a kitchen table at 4 a.m. to a CEO's desk, to boardrooms and shareholder meetings, and finally, back into the hands of millions of people waiting for a sign that someone, somewhere, cares. It proves that the smallest connection can bear the greatest weight. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to our channel. We dedicate ourselves to finding and sharing these powerful narratives of human connection, where a single choice changes everything. Tap the like button if you believe in the power of listening. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that their voice matters, or with a leader who needs to hear this message. How did this story make you feel? Have you ever been a Marcus, offering kindness without expectation? Or have you been an Evelyn, faced with a truth that asked you to change? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every single one, and we would truly love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this community. We wish you and your loved ones strength in your challenges, clarity in your choices, and the courage to both send and receive the messages that change worlds. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell. We'll see you in the next story, where we continue to explore the moments that remind us what it means to be human. Remember, the next great change might not begin with a loud announcement. It might start with a quiet note, waiting to be found. All you have to do is look.